Okay, so for today's video, the question is, well, how much does it cost Marcus for an HIE birth entry case? In other words, how much is this going to cost to do something like this? The reason why I want to talk with you today about this is because in the past, I shot a video in which I discussed in that video why a medical malpractice attorney, why they may not in some instances take your case. And in that video, I described that if the cost to do the case is going to essentially outweigh what you can recover in the case, then it may be hard to get an attorney to take the case. And that's just because you will probably be upside down. In other words, if you have to repay costs and if you have to repay the legal fee and you don't recover enough, then that can put the client in a pretty tight situation. And so in that video, I was discussing why that might be the reason why it may be hard in some instances to get an attorney to take the case. Well, of course, I got a ton of comments in that video, and they ranged from, well, lawyers should do these cases for free, they should just go ahead and just do this, to, well, I know lawyers, or a lot of lawyers, they won't take a dime on this case until the client gets paid out. And in that video, there just was a lot of confusion that stemmed around the difference between an attorney's costs and an attorney's legal fee. And so what I want to talk with you today about is I want to try to clear that up. The last birth injury case that we were successful with, that we were able to get resolved, that case, it took about $200,000 to $250,000 in costs to be able to put that case forward. Now, when I'm talking about costs, what I'm talking about are depositions, and I'm talking about medical records and experts and lodging of experts if needed to come in, and all of these types of things. That is what we're going to be talking about when we're talking about costs. Costs are separate from the attorney's legal fee. The legal fee is the attorney's fee for doing the case. So when we are going through this process, you have to understand that costs are one thing and the legal fee is something else. And when you are deciding on whether you want to get involved with an attorney for something like this, you have to make sure that when you are signing up with that attorney, that you understand the difference between costs and legal fees. Now, in some instances, there are some attorneys that will say that unless we win the case, that means we get a good, successful settlement, or we win at trial, that you don't have to pay us unless we win. And that's costs, and that's the legal fee. But there are also some instances in which it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. Some attorneys will say you are still responsible for costs. You may not be responsible for the legal fee, but you are still responsible for the costs. And so I just want to make sure that you understand that when you're going forward with something like this, or you want to speak with an attorney, or you want to try to deal with something like this, that you understand what are the differences between the costs and the legal fee. Are you responsible only if you win? And if you win the case, that means that you're responsible for the fee and the costs? Or do you have to pay back costs irrespective of whether you win the case or you lose the case? So I just want to make sure that you understand that. And when we're in the context of HIE birth injury cases, these cases can take a lot of money to get through, and you do not sign these cases up with the idea that, well, they always settle. Nope, that is not the case. With medical malpractice cases, yes, a lot of cases do settle, but in some instances they will not settle, and you have to go to trial. So it's imperative that when you are screening cases and when you're talking to clients and when you're going through everything, it's imperative that for me, how I do it is I assume that I'm going to have to try this case. And if I have to try this case, am I still in a good spot? So it's not enough just to say, well, I'm going to sign this client up and I'm going to go through all of this. I'm going to run these costs and all of this stuff up and hope that the other side will settle the case. What if they don't want to settle? What if they say, nope, our doctor didn't do anything wrong? Nope. Our nurses didn't do anything wrong? Nope. The hospital didn't do anything wrong? We'll see you in court on this. We're going to go ahead and push for a trial date, and we're going to go through with it. So it's very important that when you're going through this process that you understand all of these concepts that I am explaining in this video. And when you're sitting down and you're talking to your attorney and you're looking to sign up on that fee agreement or on that contract, it's imperative that you understand these concepts. And if you don't, it's okay to say, okay, well, Mr. Attorney or Mrs. Attorney, I'm not understanding this. Can you go ahead and get into a little bit more depth, explain this in a way that I understand it? All right? So I just want to make sure that you understand these types of concepts. If you have more questions, Or if you'd like to speak with me further in regards to your baby's HIE injury, brain injury at birth, you have questions as to whether the doctors or the nurses or the hospital caused it, or was it genetic, or was it developmental, the telephone number down below on the screen. I invite you to go ahead and get your cell and give me a call. It costs you nothing to talk with me initially about this, okay? So it doesn't cost you anything to talk with me initially about your baby story. When you contact my office, make sure that you pick a date and a time to get on my calendar. That's extremely important. Pick a date and a time so I'll know when to return the call and contact you again. And in addition to that, make sure that you have a good working email, because in some instances we have to speak to clients, or we have to reach out through email. So make sure you have an email address that you check frequently. And one more thing before I get out of here. I practice law in the state of Maryland, and I know from time to time I have individuals who will contact me in my office. They're in the United States, but they're not in Maryland. If that is you, just understand that we have to use what we call co-counsel or local counsel. In other words, an attorney in your state. And that's something that we can look to work and help you with, but I just want to make sure that you understand that co-counsel or local counsel aspect of things if you are not in the state of Maryland. All right, that's going to be it for today's quick educational video. Again, I'm Marcus Boston, and I'm one of the childbirth injury and medical malpractice attorneys practicing law in the state of Maryland at Boston Law Group, LLC. We'll talk with you next time. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.